Hey guys, what is up? Maokai here bringing you a brand new patch tier list for patch 12.17. Now we have got some really juicy stuff coming into this patch, and I genuinely think it's a really good patch. Overall, a great patch for supports. We got some nice juicy buffs, some nice switching around of the metas that's going to benefit support players. So let's get right into it. Well, before we get into it, if it's your first time on the channel, make sure you guys are subscribed. And if you somehow don't know who I am, my name is Maokai, the greatest support alive. I've got lots and lots of experience in high elo solo queue and also high elo competitive environments, so I've got like a really good nice foundation for game knowledge. And yeah, these are the supports that I think that you guys should be playing to climb, or maybe the supports you should be avoiding to climb. So down here, these champions, not going to spend too much time on them. These champions are trash in the support role. These are just things that people really want to work, or maybe people who are one-tricks play them in support. I absolutely would not recommend any of these champions. Annie, Renekton, Malzahar, Ivern, Nunu. Not to say they don't bring anything to the table, but I think that more than often, these champions are just baits. You know, Ivern, oh, he's got utility, let's play him as support, and then it's terrible. Nunu, oh, he's got utility and roaming, let's play him as support, and then it's terrible. So don't play these champs. Tier 4, you are hurting your climb by these champions. Now, I have seen people become very successful playing these champions. Even in high elo, there's a player named Anivia Support that plays, surprise, Anivia Support, and it's really good. There's cheese strategies with like Scion and Rammus and Malphite, but overall, these champions require way more effort. You're going to put way more effort into these champions that if you expended that effort on any other champion, like mastering those, you're going to have a much better climb. So, you know, things like Scion, Anivia, Poppy, she's pretty good into enemy tank champions and like highly mobile champions, which to be honest, that's every champion these days. You know, every new champ comes out with like 4 dashes. But there's just no real reason to lock her in over someone like Leona, someone more typical, someone more straightforward, and someone more just a little more efficient in what she does. That being said, if you wanted to play Leona and they lock Leona, Poppy's not a terrible pick. Rammus, Malphite, you know, Malphite, you're going to want to play like full AP and just go for like one-shots. Just take people off guard because they don't know how to play against Malphite. Now, if you're going to play J4, you're going to want to go the Airy build, where Airy full AP J4, where he's got this really fun interaction on his E, where if he drops his Flagstaff, which is his E, it procs Airy offensively, and then it can also proc it defensively, and you can get off like 4 or 5 Airy procs per E cast, which is pretty funny. Camille support just hasn't really been seen. I think it got played in pro play one patch or something, and then was just nerfed into the ground. She's pretty much solely a top laner these days. Shaco support, very disruptive champion. You can, you know, counter jungle, and it's pretty good into like hook champions. But other than that, like Shaco support is very reliant on the enemy team making mistakes into you. You know, if they just play safe, you really contribute nothing to the game. Ahri, really the only thing Ahri support has going for it is that like you have a little bit of like kill pressure and agency. You want to go a nice glacial page, and then also there's a lot of strength in something called flex picks, where you can lock in Ahri and champ select like in 1 or 2, slot number 1 or 2, and the enemy team doesn't really know if you're locking that in as mid or support. But you know, that's really not a tangential benefit of playing this champion. These champions are just like really not super good into the support role. Now this is where we start getting to the vast majority of champs. Tier 3. These champions are average and should only be played if you are skilled with them or used as a counter pick. Now that word is very important. I'll come back to that. Now, actually, Morgana is the queen of the counter picks. You allow someone to lock in a high agency, hard engaged champion like Thresh or Blitzcrank or Leona, and then boom, you lock in the Morgana. You're still going to be hurting your team comp because, like, beyond the Black Shield, you're not really providing too much to your team other than, like, really long range pick. But unless you have an ADC that can follow up on that, or an ADC that pairs really well with it, like a Caitlyn, not the best pick. She's pretty average. She's average, and she's really good at counter picks. Yuumi, you guys know about Yumi's very middle of the road right now. We're actually in a very diverse support meta right now, where you can be playing anything that you want, from mages to enchanters to tanks, to AD champions like Pyke and Senna. So my question is, why would you play Yuumi? I think you're probably going to be hurting your climb if you play that champion. She has incredibly low agency, probably the lowest in the game. And you guys know about what I mean by agency, right? Agency is what you can get done on your own. Yumi literally cannot even position. So not only do I not recommend this champion because she's very middle of the road, but also you're not going to be learning the game. So if you want to be playing and also getting better at the same time, Yumi's probably not the best champ. Zachary. Better than people think as a hard engaged champ, and that's pretty much the nicest thing I can say about him. Nico support is kind of like a riskier, lower range, but higher damage version of Lux. I found some success playing Nico support, but she's one of those champions that I think you really need to spend a lot of time working out the nooks and cranny and using the clone correctly and using the shape shifting correctly to get ambushes off. A lot of effort for a not so stellar champion. Shin, I've always said Shin, much like Nico is a shorter range, riskier version of Lux, Shin is a higher damage, riskier version of Leona. And that might sound a little bit weird, but Shin, when he goes in with his taunt, if he misses it, or even if he goes in and he shouldn't have gone in, he is now in the middle of the enemy team with no more CC. After his Aftershock runs out, he's pretty much just dead, right? Whereas Leona, if she misses her E, she maybe takes a little bit of poke and, she can pop her W and survive all that. But Shin literally repositions himself with his E, whether it lands or not. So I've always found that to be pretty risky because what if they flash it? Then you're Aftershockless in the middle of their team. But he does provide some pretty unique utility that Leona doesn't. Syndra, I think this champion is honestly underrated in the support role, but still not amazing. She's got really, really good poke level 1, kill pressure level 2, obviously kill pressure again at level 6 with her big ultimate. But beyond that, she's not anything that you should be one-tricking to climb, or she's not going to, I don't think she's ever going to be a meta pick. Vel'Koz, pretty unique mage champion that does true damage. I still can't really recommend him over the other mages, which are actually quite good in the game right now. But Vel'Koz is not terrible. Tomkinch, you should really only be playing him with a Senna, in my opinion. And at that point, you're not even playing support. You're playing him in the carry role while Senna goes starving Senna. Tomkinch is in a weird place. Vex, you guys know how I feel about Vex. I think she's so much fun. I think she's probably the best design champion we've had in years. Can she work in the support role? Yes. Is she best in the support role? No. Okay, moving on. We got Seraphine, who is kind of the other side of the coin to Sona. People compare them to Sona a lot. I don't particularly like that comparison, but in order to save time, I'm going to use that comparison. Sona's better. Just play Sona, guys. Alistar has been absolutely lacking. Other than the fact that he's got really, really good rune diversity, you can go things like Phase Rush, Aftershock, Glacial, and they all work relatively well on Alistar. I find myself asking, why would you ever lock Alistar in over Leona? And you guys will notice Leona's kind of the golden standard that I use for engaged champions because, one, she's the champion who does pretty much nothing but engaging. But also just because she's incredibly easy to pilot, she's always usually relatively good in the meta. Very, very little room for error. And she's just always useful. So I just don't feel that same way about things like Shin and Alistar, even though they do relatively the same thing. So if it's a primarily engaged champion and they're not better than Leona, they're probably going to be pretty low on the list. Lux. Lux has always been the original support that ADCs don't like having on their team. And that's never really changed. She can 1v9, she can poke, she can one-shot. But do they usually? Not really. Ashe support. We're actually going to be moving her all the way up to high tier 3. I can't in good conscience put her outside of tier 3. Same with MF, but we'll get to her later. But Ashe support is very, very good. The only problem is that people don't know how to pilot Ashe. This champion brings so much to the laning phase. You want to go Halo Blades over Comet these days. You've got poke, you've got utility, you've got built-in Glacial Augment, you've got a super easy to land, hard engage ultimate. This champion's really, really good. The only bad part about this is that you're going to be putting 2 immobile squishies, probably 2 marksmen in the lane, and that's just waving a giant red flag saying, hey, come gank me jungler. So, not crazy about Ashe support, but she is super, super fun, and she's probably better now than she has ever been. So if you're interested in picking up Ashe support, now's probably a good time. Bard is one of those champions that you just have to one-trick. If you don't one-trick him, there's no point in playing him. Galio is, once again, going back to this word right here, counterpick. If they lock in a tank and you still need a tank, you can play Galio. Pretty good at, not counter-engaging, but like anti-engage. Like if Galio just stands next to his ADC, the engaged champion is not going to go on their ADC. You've got lots of tools. You've got your E knockup, you've got your taunt, you've got your ultimate. They're all super easy to land and readily available. He makes the game pretty boring though, so I'm not the biggest fan. Braum. Not talking about Braum. Also, Amumu, I have 2 Amumus on this tier list accidentally. Ignore this Amumu. I don't know how to... okay. Yeah, we delete this Amumu. Amumu is tier 1, but we'll talk about him later. Set actually got like a little nerf on this patch, but it's not really going to be anything that is going to be world-shattering or like raise him up the tier list for support meta. You are going to have a nice little increased slow on your E, but the thing is most sets right now are running glacial, so I'm not sure that most set supports are running glacial right now, so I'm not sure how much this slow is actually going to matter, because when you use your E, they're already slowed. So maybe this is more of a buff to set top and not really set support. Or in support, this is one of those champions that I personally wish was better in the support role, because, I mean, he's got so much CC, he's got a really unique mechanic in his kit, which is brittle, which makes other CC last longer. He's got great engage. He's got that whole blacksmith thing going on where he makes items for other people and doesn't have to go back to the shop. I think it's so cool. One of the most unique champs in the game. Unfortunately, very, very lackluster in the support role. Gragas, pretty decent build variety, pretty decent engage, pretty decent anti-engage with his E, good playmaking with his R. There's better options, though. You don't have to actually one-trick Gragas to know what you're doing as Gragas support, but it would definitely help. Talia, very, very good anti-mobility. She's honestly like the best anti-mobility champion in the game. Like, remember when Riot said that they wanted their next mage to be anti-mobility and they made Vex, and all she does is get to like fear people slightly more often if they dash? Talia is the actual anti-mobility carry in the game now with her E ever since they changed that. That being said, still very middle of the road in the support role. Vigar has one good thing about him in the support role, and that's his box. If you want to be a box bot, you can play Vigar, but you're going to be very low on economy. You're not going to get as many stacks as mid lane Vigar would. So if you're playing something that combos really well with a Vigar, or you just want to be a box bot, sure, play Vigar support, but I'm not a big fan of it. Rakan, I am a big fan of this champion. Excellent playmaking, excellent peel. Actually, I'm using the word excellent wrong there. Good playmaking, good peel, good shielding, good healing. Very middle of the road. I don't think Rakan will honestly ever escape tier 3 because he is by design supposed to be a jack of all trades, master of none. He's good at all these things, but he's not great at any of them, and there's better champions for all the things that he does. There's better shielders, there's better healers, there's better peelers, there's better engagers. So if your team comp is already well-rounded out and you just want to lock in a good, fun champion that can do a little bit of everything, Rakan's great. But if your team comp is lacking, I would not lock in Rakan because you're going to be feeling that lack throughout the game. Swain, pretty good hyper carry support, but it is not probably in your best interest to play this champion over like 100 games straight. Kind of like Rakan, where it's like, if your team comp already has everything that it needs, maybe lock in Swain and try to 1v9 through bot. But already talked about Ashe. Now let's talk about Misfortune, because this is the biggest change on the patch. They are making a lot of different changes to Misfortune, and it is going to affect Misfortune support and ADC, and just the bot lane in general, since you might be playing against them in either of those roles. So the Q'd base damage is increased late. The cast time is adjusted. This one's big. It feels great. W mana cost decreased, attack speed bonus increased, E cooldown increased, base damage decreased, AP scaling increased. Okay, I just said a lot of words. Let's go through what that actually means. The Q is now an auto reset, and it doesn't feel like you're casting a spell. If you've ever played Misfortune, you know what playing her, you know what using her Q feels like. You auto, and then you have to Q, and that Q takes 0.25 seconds. It feels like you're casting a spell. Well, now it's going to feel like you're casting an auto attack with your Q. Instead of bam, bam, it's going to be like bam, bam, and then you just keep running. Feels great. The champion feels much more sharp and fluid, less clunky. Great updates. And then also, they just straight up buff the base damage on it. So big buff to the Q. The W mana cost is lower. I've always thought W is probably her most useless ability when it comes to support, so this isn't the biggest deal. And then attack speed. Obviously, they are trying to shift MF support, or they're trying to shift MF towards these crit and lethality builds away from AP and away from support without gutting support. They still want people to be able to play it. They just don't want it to be like her primary role. But here's the big ones, guys. The E Make It Rain. This is MF support bread and butter, right? This is how MF support actually interacts with the lane. And now, late game, it's going to have 4 extra seconds on the cooldown. Wow. And then the damage, base damage is reduced, but it scales harder. The slow is increased at early levels and lowered at later levels, and now it scales better with AP. So, what does this mean for MF support? I think it's overall going to be a nerf to the laning phase and a pretty big buff to the late game phase. The champion is just in general going to feel better. She's going to have more build diversity. Honestly, I'm going to be trying out lethality MF support over AP support, but the whole stand a million screams away and press E while your E does all your work for you and drizzles down Comet on them, that playstyle is going to be a little bit weaker. It's got lower base damage, it's got higher cooldowns as you scale it, but it scales hard. MF's a hard one to place on this tier list. Overall, I think it's going to be a slight buff overall, but it is going to be a general nerf to her laning phase, which is where MF support actually shines. It's pretty brainless. It's, you know, I've called it the turn off your brain comp where we lock Ashe and MF. It's going to be a nerf to that turn off your brain playstyle, but overall, I think we're going to see, as people adjust to it and as people pick it up and play it, it's going to be a nerf. Her win rate might actually go down this patch, but I'm actually putting her higher on the tier list than she was last patch. Okay, tier 2. These champions are very good on the current patch, and we just got through what I said was the biggest change, MF. This might actually be the biggest change. They're both pretty massive. They're making, Riot's doing these big sweeping reworks. They're calling them reworks or adjustments when in reality, they are just buffs to the champion. So Maokai, passive Q, E, and R adjusted. Maokai has been all bark and no bite for quite some time now. We're helping this tree rediscover his roots in both the top lane and jungle without removing his ability to be a support. Okay, Q, getting hit by, this doesn't matter. This is just for jungle Maokai. Q Bramble Smash, lower base damage, but now Q deals maximum health damage. So they're taking the maximum percent health damage off of the E and putting it onto the Q. Obviously, that is going to favor top lane, where they're going to be in melee range of each other much more often, and don't have to deal with 2 people hitting them back. So that is going to be initially a nerf to the sapling. And sapling is just like MF's E was her bread and butter for support. Maokai's E is his bread and butter for support as well. So Q is now buffed. Q now deals 60 bonus damage to monsters. Once again, they're just wanting him to get into the jungle. I don't know why they're doing that. That's going to be terrible to play against. Base damage for the E is increased, and now it scales with bonus HP. So it scales a little worse with AP, scales a little bit better, or scales now with bonus HP. They're wanting Maokai to build tank, is what this is. The empowered brush damage, though, is almost tripled. Absolutely huge buff to the empowered bush damage, and now has 85% AP plus 12% bonus HP. Minions activist. The minions no longer take empowered brush damage from saplings. This is also a stealth buff to the support, because now when you're trying to choke people out in laning phase and throw an E into the bush, good players will just go get the aggro of that sapling and then lead it into the wave, and then all of a sudden, you're pushing into them, and which is usually not something that your ADC is going to be happy about. So this is actually a buff that your saplings will now no longer do the empowered brush damage to minions. Mana cost is also lower, and the slow amount is higher. And then the brush empowered saplings now deal 35. It's now 45% plus 2% per 100 AP, 6% per 1,000 bonus HP. That's so much HP, by the way. And then this is the biggest one, guys. The R is now super freaking fast. It now starts out twice as fast and gets 100 speed faster. And then the missile acceleration is also faster. This is a really long-winded way of saying it's much faster now. And then not only will the R be faster, Maokai gets faster. He gets a built-in ghost if he hits a champion. That's crazy. Up to 60% bonus movement speed, which will let him reposition, will let him engage on top of the R. Maokai, in general, is just buffed now. You're going to have a little bit of an adjustment. We might be finding new builds to go. We might be looking at new playstyles, going tank over AP. It's too soon to say. But overall, looking at these changes, this is not a rework. This is just a straight-up buff, and I can't wait to try it out for you guys. Okay, so we talked a lot about Maokai and Misfortune. I'm going to go very, very quickly through the rest of these champions because other than Amumu, nothing much has changed. Pantheon is a good cheese pick. Thresh is a good pick if you want to put in a lot of time and experience on him. Zillion is low-key, always been broken. Teemo is the most underrated support in the game. Also, I found a brand new Teemo support build, which is super fun. Check out that YouTube video. Senna is still sitting on the throne of being relatively strong without, I don't think she's like actually broken right now. But give Riot August a few patches. I'm sure he'll do something to her to make her broken. Soraka, Enchanters are just very, very strong right now. Nami actually got an interesting change, which is going to be a nerf to her because the E only counts as one proc towards Electrocute. And without any context, that seems like kind of a weird change to make. But Nami's being primarily played right now with Lucian. Nami goes Electrocute, Lucian dashes forward, she puts his E on him, and then Lucian shoots people, and then all of a sudden she's procced Electrocute, and they chunk their entire health bar super, super fast. So that playstyle is going to be going away. Just go Airy now. I don't think this is going to be like the biggest nerf to Nami ever. It's just that one unhealthy playstyle is going to be going away. And then now hopefully people will stop instantly picking Lucian whenever I lock in Nami. Hope so. Heimerdinger is surprisingly good against melee champions. He actually had the highest win rate as a support last patch. Can you believe that? But he's only good against melee champions. And he's only good in matchups where you're not going to be getting camped because Heimerdinger naturally pushes the wave with his turrets. Renata is very, very good. I think she's getting slept on. And she's got a cool new skin. Yeah, Renata, I think Renata's pretty broken right now. Pyke is much like Thresh. Pretty worthless champion if you don't put in a lot of time on him. I think he is incredibly high skill cap and pretty high skill floor, whether or not people want to admit it or not. Blitzcrank is almost always going to be a pretty decent pick. Right now, he's sitting at above decent. He's actually quite good just because look at a lot of these large groups of good champions that people are locking in. Most of them are squishy. Like, look at tier 1, half of the tier 1 groups right now, or half the tier 1 champs right now are squishy, and over half of the tier 2 are squishy. So it's like Blitzcrank is always going to be that coin flip champion where you can miss every single hook the entire game, but you land one good hook late game and it's like, oh, okay, we win the game. Nautilus is a little bit better than he was in previous patches, and it's just kind of been the shifting of the meta. I don't even think Nautilus has had any direct buffs, but Nautilus is pretty good right now. Rell also got a much deserved buff. The problem is I don't think it's going to change all that much. The W dismounted movement speed has increased. The E cooldown is now flat. Okay, so let's look at this. Rell has been out of the spotlight for quite some time now, so we're giving her some small quality of life buffs to help her get back on her Iron Steed. W, the move speed while dismounted is now plus 30. So that's basically like getting free boots when you're dismounted. The problem is that you are still an average of 100 movement speed below champions without boots. This isn't going to change. Like, if you go in on a bad engage, this 30 movement speed is not going to let you like actually escape that. You know what I mean? Rell is just such a punishing, clunky champion that I don't think this movement speed is actually going to change all that much, other than it's going to feel a little bit better. You're going to feel like you only have, half of a poopy diaper, instead of a whole big poopy diaper when you're W walking. The E attract and repel cooldown is now flat, which means that you won't be putting points into it, so it's going to be encouraging a Q max second, so WQE max. This might be a decent change. I'm not really sure yet because it's actually a nerf to its late game, because previously people were maxing E second and getting that down to a nice healthy 11 seconds. Now that's 13 seconds right at the beginning of the game, so pretty considerable buff to her laning phase actually, and it's going to be changing up her skill max order, so could be, I'm on the fence whether or not this is going to actually change anything, but honestly, it doesn't matter because I already thought Rell was a strong champion. She's just, the worst part about Rell is that she's unfun to play. That's why her play rate is so low. That's, she's tilting and unfun and clunky to play. This isn't going to change any of that. and hopefully Riot has a proper rework for her down the line. But a buff's a buffs, and we'll take that, guys. Mage. As for mage champions, Xerath is getting slept on as well. Leona is just a solid pick. She's going to round out your team comp. She's brain dead to play. She's super easy to pilot. Always useful. You can hardcore 1v9 with this champions, and outside of Amumu, she is for sure the best tank support to be playing right now. And alongside that is the absolute or second best mage support to be playing. Brand, Amumu is to Leona as Zyra is to Brand. They just edge each other out just a little bit, but I want to get to the tier 1, so let's finish up the tier 2 stuff. Lulu, Sona, Janna, all of these are really strong enchanters. Not much to say about them. You guys, they've been around for years at this point, and they've always been strong for years too. Now, who hasn't been around and strong for years is Fiddlesticks support. This freaking came out of nowhere. I think it was like a random buff to Fiddlesticks that made him broken in the jungle and support role. Want to be going glacial, want to be just obviously, E-poking throughout the lane and then hitting level 6, and it's an instant guaranteed kill with your ultimate every single time. Want to go that glacial so you can walk up and Q them, spook them, and then they're super slow. Yeah, Fiddlesticks is good. Now, tier 1, these champions are the absolute best of the best in the current meta, and you should 100% be playing these if you want to climb. Now, you might be saying, Aoki, didn't Taric get nerfed? It doesn't matter, guys. It's 3 MR. That is not going to matter down in the bot lane, where the person you're going to be taking the most damage from is AD. So Taric support is not going to be really affected by this, and then they added 1 second to your E-dazzle, but this gets reduced when you auto anyways, so this isn't even going to be a full second. Yeah. It's not, buffs aren't going to matter, or the nerfs aren't going to matter. Taric is absolute god tier. Karma is god tier only if you go the first strike build, and if that is a new phrase to you, go check out my first strike Karma video. Amumu, this guy came out of nowhere, or maybe it was just me that got blindsided by it. Amumu has just been spiking in high elo support proficiency. This champion is so broken, so easy to play, literally has kill potential at level 1 because of his double bandage toss. It's just crazy. And then if you really feel like playing mages, Zyra is the absolute queen of them right now. She's got good build diversity. You can go Ludens or Leandries. You can go Comet. You can go Electrocute. You can go Dark Harvest. I prefer the Comet. But yeah, that is going to wrap up our tier list, guys. I tried to go in depth on the champions that got the biggest changes, which is Maokai, Rell, and MF. So if you guys learned anything, give the video a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let me know any questions that you guys have about the current support meta down in the comments. I do actually read and respond to those. And that being said, guys, enjoy patch 12.17. Go out there and climb. Take it easy. Peace.